Mr. Falano, SCN, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Well, I've looked at your piece today, this morning, at the back page of This Day. It's titled Official Mishandling of the End SARS protest. For the benefit of our viewers and those listening to you, could you just help us break down that essay in today's This Day? How has the federal government of Nigeria mishandled the End SARS protest, and what needs to be done at this time, now that there is anarchy on the streets?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked beyond expression, and it's out of reluctance that I'm granting this interview, because what has happened in the last few hours in our country speaks volumes with respect to the mismanagement of protests in our country. And what I was saying in that article yesterday, what I'm saying essentially is that whereas this protest, which has lasted for about 11 days, was very peaceful, well organized, well conducted, and I can say this without any fear of contradiction, because I've been taking part in protests since my undergraduate days. In fact, as far back as 1978, when we had the Ali Must Go crisis of that year against the commercialization of education in Nigeria. Now, and since then, I've led protests, I've taken part in protests, but I can tell you, I have never witnessed the degree of organizational capacity and commitment, of the young men and women who have engaged in this protest. For me, it was so easy to meet the 5-point demand of the protesters. But as usual, what did government do? Just embark on name change, from SARS, SWAT, and then the young men and women were asked to wait for more reforms. And unfortunately, like our own generation, well, I won't say unfortunate, the young men were saying, and women, come, we have been used to promises that were never fulfilled. If we leave the streets, we are sure it's going to be business as usual. And therefore, we shall remain peaceful in our points, on our point. Please carry out the other reforms while we remain on the street, staging our peaceful protest. Unfortunately, sponsor talks were allowed to introduce mayhem into what was otherwise generally acknowledged all over the world as a peaceful protest. Now, people are mistaken. And what I'm saying in my article is that it doesn't lie in the mouth of any public officer, any authority in Nigeria says, hoodlums have taken over the state from us. Hoodlums have, for goodness sake, what is the role of the state? Is to deal with criminal elements. And what will surprise you, which for me, and I remain completely flabbergasted, that in all the pictures that I have seen, I have never seen a situation where the security forces, the police in particular, have fired tear gas canisters or fired bullets, rubber bullets, or use water cannon to disperse the protesters or the criminal elements. I had taken part in protests before, and there was no case, no time that the government wanted to disband us or disperse us that they did not ask the police to use very concentrated tear gas canisters. What has happened in this case? But more importantly, again, this is painful for me. I say this with a lot of agony because I handle a case for the ANPP leader led by General Muhammadu Buhari, as he then was, to challenge police permits because they had a rally and it was disbanded violently by the police in Kano on the 22nd of May 2003. I was asked to go to court. I went to court, got a judgment where the police permit was declared illegal and unconstitutional in the High Court. The police appeal. The appeal was dismissed by the Court of Appeal in 2008. We won the case in 2006. And since then, the right of Nigerians to protest peacefully has been recognized. In 2015, the standard was raised when the National Assembly decided to amend the Electoral Act to impose a duty on the police to provide adequate, that is the word, adequate security for peaceful protesters in Nigeria. That has not happened in this case. On the contrary, we are being told that criminal elements, so-called hoodlums, hijack the protest. Why did you allow them to hijack? And in this case, again, it's painful for me because I advise the authorities, based on the judgment we obtained that allow Nigerians to protest. Come, you must designate certain areas in our country where people can protest. And you guys, what has happened in Abuja, we used to have the protest in the Unity Fountain, just close to a stone's throw from the Transcorp Hilton Hotel. In Lagos, we used to have our rallies at the Ganifa Park in Ojota. Both designated areas have been blocked, sealed off by the government. Now, what happens? What happened? Why? And he told the government, you cannot do this. That has been done. In other words, you are saying, we are right, you have the right to protest, but we are going to make it impossible for you to protest. And when people go anywhere in town to protest, they are dispersed violently. Some are charged with all manners of offenses, even for enjoying their lives. So this is why it is very disturbing. And that is the point I was trying to make. And I made the point. Again, last year, October, the Nigerian Army announced that it was going to carry out Operation Identification, the parade. Everybody was asked to provide or produce their ID card, voter card, and so on and so forth, licenses and whatever. And I said, no, it is not the business of the army to engage in any form of security under a democratic government. So we sued. While that case was in court, sponsored lumpen elements were organized in Abuja to stage a protest against me. And they were saying, leave the army alone. But I was not disturbed. I went on with the case. I won the case. The chief of army staff has filed an appeal. The appeal is pending. But meanwhile, the court made it abundantly clear. The Honorable Justice Aikawa made the point that having regard to sections 217 and 2018 of the Constitution, the armed forces have no business outside the Northeast region where we're operating an emergency, where you have an emergency situation. You have no business to usurp the functions of the police in maintaining law and order in the country. That judgment remains. Now, when you now talk of another exercise, whether you call it crocodile or whatever, clearly the law does not allow you. And so what is going on, the involvement of the army is not only illegal but contemptuous. It's a violation of a pending, subsisting and valid judgment of a court. So, and this is the point I'm making, that this government could have handled this matter by activating the relevant provisions of our laws, which have abolished not just police brutality, but all forms of brutality in our country.
Indeed,
And that's the message I try to get across.
Indeed, sir. If I may come in here now, speaking of the army, what do you make of their denials via their Twitter handle, debunking claims that it was soldiers who opened fire on unarmed peaceful protesters last night? The army claimed that it is fake news. And secondly, I have another question for you, sir, of a more personal nature. Your son, Folari, also known as Fowles, has been one of the prominent NSAS campaigners. What advice are you giving your son now? What counsel are you giving father to son at this point that things have taken a diabolical turn?
Yeah, in the first place, I do not want to believe that denier has come from the military authorities, because the evidence on ground does not support a denier. And I think, in any case, again, this is where the duty of the government comes in. It's not enough to deny a serious violation of the rights of citizens, including opening fire on them and killing them, assuming without conceding that the barbaric invasion of the right to life of those young men and women was carried out by, again, hoodlums. Let us assume. What has the government done? The duty of the government is to investigate and bring to book those who have carried out the exercise. And the army should be interested in such an exercise. But this is not the first time. In 2014, hundreds of Shiites were killed in Zaria. The army came out to say, sorry, our chief of army staff, the same chief of army staff, General Yusuf Buratai, was going to be assassinated. So we repelled those who wanted to kill him, and so about 5 or 7 people died. But what happened? The government of Kaduna State set up an inquiry. At the commission of inquiry, the government official, hospital officials came to say 347 dead bodies were dumped in our hospital. And what happened to those bodies? They were removed from the hospital and given a mass burial in an unmarked grave. Up to now, the panel recommended that those who carried out the gruesome massacre be fished out and prosecuted. That has not been done. And I can reel out other cases of extrajudicial killing, including the latest one, the one of a criminal suspect in Benue State, Ghana, who had been pardoned by the state governor in the exercise of his powers under Section 175 of the Constitution, who was now waiting for the man and his boy. But midway, the guy was taken and executed extrajudicially. And of course, the family came to me as a human rights lawyer, and I've written to the military. And of course, they said, Mr. Falana, please give us time to investigate. In the case of Taraba, policemen, patriotic police officers, went to arrest an alleged kidnapper that had terrorized the state for 3 years. The police had arrested him on their way to the state headquarters, Jalingo. A detachment of the army pursued them and killed the policemen. Again, the court ordered prosecute them. The Honorable Attorney General of the country has dropped the charges. We are in court now to compel him to prosecute. So we are used to this. With respect to my son, again, this is not personal. I have appealed to the young men and women who are engaged in the protest, and I'm taking advantage of this opportunity to appeal to them again, not to be provoked because of the unfortunate incident of last night, because of the tragic incident of last night. They should allow us They should allow the human rights community, the Nigerian Bar Association, the Pan-African Lawyers Association, and others that have indicated their wish to pursue this matter to a logical conclusion. In other words, the law must be allowed to take its course. And that is my advice for them.
Well, Mr. Falana, well, sorry to interrupt you at this point. We have on our screen breaking news. Nigerian Ports Authority in Apapa, Lagos is on fire. The building has been set on fire by protesters. Now, we also understand that the Oyinbo BRT bus terminal is also on fire. Earlier, we announced the attack on the TVC News station, also in the Ikeja area. But Mr. Falana, quickly, the situation seems to be degenerating. And at the time you wrote the essay that I referred to earlier, which was published in This Day Today at the back page, you had a section titled The Way Forward, and you had a number of recommendations. Are you staying with those recommendations, or in the light of what has happened in the last 12 hours, you want to make some other suggestions as to how the federal government of Nigeria can deal with this situation? Now that petitions have been written, the African Bar Association is protesting, the Nigerian Bar Association is also saying it will go to the International Criminal Court to fight charges against certain persons.
Again, for me, this is a question of crowd control. As I said earlier, why are the hoodlums that are destroying properties, government properties, not dispersed appropriately? Why are they not dispersed with tear gas cannons by the police? This is the question. Why are they not being dispersed with water cannon or rubber bullets? Because you can't run a country and say, oh, we are at the mercy of criminal elements. How many of them? And I'm appealing to the authorities, the Nigerian police force, the civil defense, LASMA, all of them should please use the instrumentality of the law to bring the situation under control. On my own part, I'm appealing to all those who are engaged in violence to please put a stop to it, because this country belongs to all of us. We must not destroy the country. Nobody should be provoked to take the law into their hands. And so I am appealing to the young people, particularly the hoodlums that have now embarked on destroying government properties. I'm also appealing to the protesters. Please conduct yourself peacefully. For the government, you must move fast to douse the tension in town. And what I've appealed for is the government should activate the provisions of our law that have recognized the right of suspects in police custody or any other custody in Nigeria, the need for us, whenever a Nigerian is taken to a police station, to read out to him his rights, otherwise called Miranda rights. Now, the law has prohibited the arrest of anybody in lieu of another. The law has banned arresting people for civil wrongs in Nigeria. And whenever a Nigerian is taken to a police station, he must be told, he must be allowed to contact his next of kin. That is also part of our law. And I'm talking of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. There is an anti-torture act that has prohibited any form of torture in Nigeria, whether mental, psychological, or physical. The Attorney General of the Federation, since 2017, has been asked by law to draw up guidelines to prohibit torture in Nigeria. That has not been done. That can be done today. The president ought to have reconstitute or to have reconstituted the National Human Rights Commission since it was disbanded in 2015. That can be done without any further delay. Now, the Nigeria Police Force Act of 2020 has banned the prosecution of criminal offenses in Nigeria by lay persons. In other words, policemen and women who are not lawyers. Again, no state government has recruited enough lawyers to take over the prosecution of cases. This has to be done without any further delay. Again, there is the Police Trust Fund Act, which was enacted into law last year for funding the police. About 0.5% of money in the Federation account shall be deducted and put in that Police Trust Fund account. 0.5% of the profits of companies shall also go into that account. And you know what that means if you have to enforce the law in terms of money from banks, from oil companies, and the rest of them. So we should have more than sufficient money to run the police in the country. These laws have to be enforced now, so that the youth and Nigerians can be made to believe that the government is committed to genuine police reforms in our country.
Well, Mr. Falano, just a follow-up question. Do you share the view that if President Muhammadu Buhari addresses the nation, immediately that may make a difference?
Well, I share the view, and that is what leadership is about. Even though the president has sent some, messages through his Twitter account, but I think it will carry more weight if the president can address Nigerians and appeal to the young men and women to give the government an opportunity to actualize the reforms that have been promised. And now on the part of the state government, they have already, or they are setting up commissions of inquiry, judicial commissions of inquiry under the respective tribunal of inquiry laws in the state. And so the federal government also has to move speedily in like manner. But I think it will be appreciated if the president can address the nation, and I'm sure that will go a long way to douse the tension that has enveloped the country.
Indeed, sir. Now, on Sunday, you issued a statement on behalf of the Alliance for Survival of COVID-19, warning Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant Tukur Buratai that he could face charges before the International Criminal Court. Does this warning still hold in view of recent events?
No, for sure. I know there are already petitions which the special prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is working on in respect of massive violations of human rights in Nigeria. The evidence here this time around will be put together and submitted, because there can be no way that any government will allow young people or any group of citizens to be killed in a premeditated manner. And that is what we are witnessing. The government cannot say, we do not know those who attacked. There have been a threat, and we know the movement of troops in Lagos last night. And luckily, the young men, and that is why we must no longer underrate our young people. I do not know where they got their ideas or energies from. In the midst of the greatest atrocity, in the midst of their agony, they were able to take photographs with their phones, hidden phones, and they captured everything that happened yesterday, including the dismantling of the CCTV. They saw the man, two of them, who were removing the cameras, and they were caught. When the army started shooting, the photograph is on the internet, so there can be no denial, and again, this has gone viral. So I expect, even without a petition from Nigeria, the International Criminal Court will be looking at this abundant evidence, because Nigeria willingly ratified the Rome Statute. And so there are certain expectations, there are certain irreducible minimum standards in dealing with Nigerians that are expected on the part of the government. So for sure, in fact, other interest groups are now saying they are also interested in taking this matter to the International Criminal Court. But ASCAP has also just given instructions now to its lawyers that before the International Criminal Court, we must also take advantage of local laws. One, to challenge the reckless killing of young people, not just in Lagos, in Ogbomoso, in Ibadan, in Edo State, and other places. They're still compiling the figures. We're still gathering our evidence. We must ensure that this never happens in our country again, whereby people are exercising their fundamental rights of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly, are mowed down, and we are told, oh, we don't know who did it. That was the king can do no wrong. Also admitted, the late Joseph Yoshe, that was under the 1963 Constitution. Happily, under the 1979 Constitution, and the same goes for 1999 Constitution. Now, the government can now be sued for the atrocities perpetrated by its own troops. In fact, I now have about 3 judgments where the government was not even involved in the killing of people. In fact, where people were killed by thugs. And that was the argument of the government in the ECOWAS court. But the court said no. The government has a duty to protect the lives of every citizen. So if they are killed by thugs through the negligence of the government must be responsible. One of the cases was against the government of Ghana. The ECOWAS court awarded $250,000 to the parents of the young boy that was taken to a river to swim, and the boy didn't know how to swim and he got drowned. Another case affected the Nigerian Defense Academy. A young man was in the NDA. Again, he was drowned during swimming. The court on that occasion awarded $75,000 to his parents. So this is the state of the law. The government can no longer hide under the principle of, it was done by thugs. We don't know the thugs that did it. Oh, it was done by hoodlums. You have a duty to prevent hoodlums from taking over the security of our country. And that's why I'm begging the government to do everything to prevent hoodlums from causing more damage in Lagos and other parts of the country.
Well, Mr. Falana, while it may not be possible for the Nigerian military to talk in 2020 about unknown soldiers, is it possible for the Nigerian military to argue that they were brought in to act in aid of civil authorities, the police having shown a lack of capacity to deal with the emerging security situation in the states where the protests were seen?
No, it's only the president that can do that. This time around, it was by the Chief of Army Staff. And the Chief of Army Staff came out to say, we are going to carry out Operation Crocodile Smile. We're going to go all over the country. And the pretext then was that the army was going to deal with a cyber crime, which is the exclusive statutory duty of the EFCC. But as I said, the court has said, you have no business maintaining internal security. Once that judgment is there, it is now the duty of the government to empower the police to carry out its responsibility. But even in this case, even where you have to bring in the army, if it is done properly under the law, the army has no right to enforce a curfew by killing people. Those who defy the curfew, the executive order of the government of Lagos State will have to be brought to trial before a properly constituted court. As they say in local parlance, right? Cutting the head is not the medicine for headache. So you cannot kill people because you believe they have defied curfew. In this case, the curfew was to take effect from 9 p.m. These young men and women were attacked at about between 7:30 and 8 p.m. So there is no excuse whatsoever. If they hadn't violated the law, if they hadn't breached the law, you cannot engage, and they are not armed. If they are not armed, if they are not attacking other people, neither the police nor the army, nor any force whatsoever will be permitted by law to shoot at them and kill them and maim them. No, even when the police authorities have, or policemen have to combat a riot, and in order to restore law and order, they are required to give a warning first. Thou shalt depart in the name of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If they fail to depart, you are to use tear gas. If they are likely to overpower the police authorities, the police will start by dispatching them with tear gas, with rubber bullets, and water cannon. And that has not been done in this case. If there is now an attempt to overpower the police, then they are allowed to shoot. Again, you have to fire any protester who is armed in the leg so that you disable him, but you don't shoot him in the head, because that will not be a force reasonably expected by virtue of Section 33 of the Constitution.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, for joining us on the morning show. Really sad day, really sad moment for Nigeria. Here in Lagos, we've seen the attack on the Nigerian Post Authority building, headquarters at Marina, Lagos, which is now, we're told, on fire. TV Continental News station around the K2 area of Lagos has also been attacked. BRT buses at the Oyibo terminal have also been set on fire by angry youths. That's all to know.